Thank you all for being here. This is an important topic that we're talking about. And my name is Marcia Jackson, and I'm honored to celebrate my 50th anniversary graduating from Brandeis. Wow. Class of 1974. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker with a master's degree in social work. I have worked in many sectors, government, private, hospitals, all levels of care, inpatient, addiction, psychiatric, adult, children, and most recently, elder, dementia, Alzheimer's, and so forth. And I am currently on the Alumni of Color Leadership Committee at Brandeis. And the Alumni of Color Network is a shared identity group. We came together so that we could be available to provide support for students and also for the university on issues of support, issues of color, and other things that arise with students of color. So it's a self-selecting opt-in community intended to serve as an affinity space for individuals from historically marginalized racial and ethnic groups, as well as their allies. Given legacies of exclusion through policies, practices based on race and ethnicity in our society, the AOC network aims to address the needs of an established community among Brandeis graduates of color and their alumni allies. And by providing opportunities for alumni connections and mentorship to current students, the AOC network supports the goals of the university in our collective efforts to move towards a more equitable and just society. And we hope that you can join us at some of our other events this weekend. At 3 o'clock, please join the Alumni Achievement Awards. And this year, honorees include Leroy Ashwood, class of 71, and he is the alum who formulated the theme for this workshop, and we're grateful for that. And he's made a distinctive societal contribution to earn the Alumni Association's highest honor. The Alumni of Color will have I believe there's 2 other events today, and that should be in the schedule. If you don't have it, you can check at the registration office. Tomorrow we'll be hosting our Praise and Remembrance service to remember those cherished alumni, faculty, and staff who are no longer with us. And that will occur at 10 a.m. at Houston. We will close out the weekend with a special brunch event, an AOC farewell brunch catered by the Southern Bean, which will begin at 11 a.m. in the Houston Alumni Lounge, and we hope you can join us. For those of you who don't know, Houston is this huge building that is kind of diagonally across from where we are. So that's where we'll be having the events. It's an honor to be hosting this panel on health and wellness in the military students and the community at large, and available resources and support. This panel will be moderated by Mr. Gregg Brasso, who is the host of Veterans Voice Radio, founder and director of 95.9 WATD FM, and also the station is broadcast on WMEX 1510, and also part of Reach America, I believe. So we'd like to open this panel by asking the panelists to introduce themselves briefly, to discuss your organization, professional experience related to health and wellness with military students and community and other. And the panelists include Dr. Rachel Millstein, whom you'll hear more about, Dr. Addie Wyman, who is the director of the community counseling at Brandeis University, and Lorita Williams, who is the founder of the Accelerated College Experience Program, which serves as a liaison between mental health experience that vets have and colleges that some of them matriculate in. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gregg Brasso.
Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me. I want to congratulate one of my dearest friends, Mr. Leroy Ashwood, for what he accomplishes more in a week than many folks can do in a year. So his persistence is, and what he does is testimony to all of us. And we thank you, Leroy, and congratulations. My name is Gregg Brasso. I'm the host of Veterans Voice Radio. We're heard every Thursday night. For the last 11 years, we've been broadcasting about 520 live radio shows, which we are featuring the directors of all of the various benefit groups. And 10 years ago when we started out, I couldn't spell mental health. And now mental health and especially suicide is something that it's in every one of our shows. And one of the issues, one of the things that the blue card here has is the three most important letters that I'd like you all to leave with today. Those letters, try numbers. It's close, Charlie. It's close.
Good enough for government work.
Those numbers are 988. 988 is the new crisis line that's been set up, and I have to tell you a story about how it really works. We've been talking about 988 for 2 years on our show, and recently, down in New Bedford, a 76-year-old woman, wife of a veteran, was having problems because her husband was going through dementia. He was getting pretty fresh with her, and she didn't know where to turn. She couldn't remember anything of what to do, but she remembered 988. She dialed it, pressed 1 at the prompt, and in 5 minutes, an unmarked police cruiser showed up at her front door, along with a guidance counselor. But just to counsel him and her and to help the situation. Well, that's a real life story. We couldn't make that up, and we're here to say that it's okay not to feel okay. And whether it's students or veterans or seniors, there's a lot of pressures on us all. But there's a lot of help. And hopefully we can identify some of the help that's available to Brandeis faculty and students, because as I said, it's okay not to feel okay. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Addie, I believe.
Yeah. Thank you. Hi. I'm Addie, Wyman, and I'm the Director of Counseling here at Brandeis, and I'm really excited to be here. My background is as a social worker, so always excited to have another social worker in the room. And yeah, some of my background includes being a social worker, school social worker, and also engaging in research through Children's Hospital in Boston. To learn about new ways to respond to suicide reduction and new strategies, especially when it comes to cultural responsiveness. We know a lot of research has been on a homogeneous population, and so really trying to tailor therapeutic responses to address and support, especially college students who come from historically marginalized backgrounds, and also look to new ways to respond as a campus as a whole. We are in a mental health crisis, and so of course we're serving students through individual counseling, and I can talk more about that, but also partnering across campus for really school-wide efforts that we can all be addressing these mental health crises.
so much. So my name is Rachel Millstein, and congratulations to Leroy. What a tremendous honor. I'm also honored to be here today. My father is a very proud Brandeis alumnus, one of the early classes, and also veteran. So in my, I wear many hats over at Mass General Hospital where I work. I'm a clinical health psychologist. I also study public health and epidemiology. And today's hat that I'm going to wear is my home base hat, which is MGH's military, veteran, service member, and family serving organization. And they run a whole number of programs over in Charlestown, the Navy Yard, really a stunning campus if you haven't been over there. And their mission is to heal the invisible wounds of war, which of course affect veteran service members of all eras and their families. When the service member serves, the family serves, we know that. I direct the Mind Body Health team, which runs resilience programs, we run fitness programs, we do art, yoga, sometimes even music therapy, all sorts of integrative therapies, because we know that mental health is kind of a constellation of factors, including our physical health, right? Our emotional health, our spiritual health, et cetera, et cetera. So we work to serve the whole person, veteran family member, and thrilled to be here today to talk more about what we can all do to promote well-being among all of our various communities.
Thank you. Congratulations again, and it's wonderful to be here. My name is Lorita Williams. I am the founder and CEO of Accelerated College Experiences, and we are the community arm of the panel. And what we do we call it ACE for short. We are a program that works with marginalized and first-generation students to help prepare them for college, but we do it in a unique way by simulating what the first semester of college will be like before they get there. And it's an intensive program in terms of getting them ready. They leave with different strategies and tools to help them, test-taking strategies, managing anxiety, managing procrastination, how to stay motivated, because these are some of the challenges that they face. And coming into a 4-year or 2-year school, it's often very lonely and very frightening. And so part of what we do is level the playing field so that they come in feeling equal and on the same footing. And then we work very closely with the schools that they attend and with our client. We think of it as a braid. There are 3 parts. There's the student, there's ACE, and then there's the support on campus. And often students are reluctant to utilize the resources on campus. There's a stigma, there's fear, they don't understand me, it's not part of my culture. And so our goal is to support them utilizing the school's resources and helping them to understand that those resources are there, they're there to support them, they care about them. And once they go through the program, they are then assigned a coach that guides them from the side until they graduate. And the guiding from the side is not giving advice and counsel. It is really using a focused inquiry methodology which helps them create their own solutions by just asking the questions, developing their critical thinking, because they're developing the solutions. And this empowers them and prepares them for life beyond college. So we look at it holistically, but we really work in partnership with the institutions and with our clients to ensure students feel safe, supported, and get the professional help they need when they need it. Thank you.
At this point in time, should I ask a couple of questions of the panel? Is that what we should do? And I'll throw this out generally without addressing anyone. But one of the questions I think is, how can we create stronger partnerships between veterans, colleges, and new students, foreign students, and community organizations to better address mental health needs? I'll throw it out there.
I think Can you hear me okay? Okay. And that's a really good question. It really is about setting the expectation on the front end. When they're coming in, whether they're a veteran or a student, there is this sense of, do I belong? And if you don't feel like you belong, you're not going to ask for help. And for a lot of students who are first gen or coming from marginalized communities, they may enter an environment where others appear to have more, appear to have a better prepared, and so they're intimidated when they walk into the classroom. And having the mental health and the support services be readily available as part of the orientation that says, these are here, they are yours, they're open to you, they're here to support you, and it's okay to ask for help. It is okay to say, I need help. So often we find that nobody wants others to know that they're struggling, and you can't get the help you need if you don't ask. So I think by making it open and okay and inviting to say, I'm struggling, and not have it be a judgment, but I'm struggling and I need support, and making sure that support is known and available before they start, instead of waiting until once they start. It should be part of the orientation that embraces them when they come to campus, regardless of being a veteran or a student.
In addition, I think that's wonderful input. In addition, I want to mention a couple of things. So having a white person on campus, a veteran outreach coordinator, or a veteran center on campus, those kinds of things have been really helpful in our outreach to student veterans. And one example I'll give is at UMass, at this point out at Amherst, and we have a very, very strong liaison partner out there who used to run a course called Resilient Warrior on Campus, which was a home-based course. It was connected with our partners at MSgt, the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine, which has been a real pioneer in kind of codifying the science of mind-body medicine in terms of meditation, mindfulness, practices that we all know now are kind of happily commonplace in our vernacular, but it wasn't a long time ago. So at this point, bringing those skills to military populations is less sort of far-fetched. By and large, it's pretty well accepted. And so our partner, Mike Peace out at UMass, has taken it upon himself to find student veterans and bring them into the Veteran Outreach Center. And from there, they have a place that they can feel comfortable and confident and at home on a campus. And so I think those types of partnerships are really important. And we were then able to train him up to run this course, Resilient Warrior on Campus. It was a 4-credit course that teaches university leadership and investment as well. So that's another pillar, I would say, to create these partnerships. Universities have to be invested in, of course, all students' mental health, including veterans as a special population. And so Resilient Warrior on Campus was run for years. They took a pause during COVID, and we're actually about to start up again on several other UMass campuses and other campuses across the country. It teaches basic resilient skills, so mind-body skills, meditation, mindfulness, grounding, as well as different coping strategies, different types of things like, kind of cognitive behavioral therapy light, where we look at our thinking, and is our thinking accurate, and are there ways we can change it, and if we can't, how can we accept it and problem solve, those types of things. As well as, again, the kind of the physical component of wellness and well-being and resilience. And so I do think having that point of contact and having something structured that other veterans are doing, once the student veterans, once the word gets out, the ball gets rolling. But it is about kind of finding a place where people can feel comfortable and at home, and from there, creating those community partnerships to support mental health.
Yeah, so I was thinking about, Lorita, when you were talking about sense of belonging, I'm over here, yes. And one of my goals for students here is that every single student is able to say, I belong at Brandeis. And so everything you said, I'm like, yes, ditto, underline, highlight, thank you so much for that. And also about thinking about partnerships. Rachel, and those, like having those contact people. And so when you can say to a student, let me introduce you to my colleague fill, and be able to do that warm handoff. And I think one of the things that we're doing well at Brandeis is at orientation, our Brandeis counseling staff, we're ready to go. We've got our little, these little totes we carry around campus with our stickers and our flyers and our fidget toys. And the current Brandeis students know it's probably a little bit of a competition at the outreach events, whose department has the coolest swag. I will say that the first year experience, Laura Flynn, I mean, she comes in with flip-flops, sunglasses, like you just can't compete with her, but we did do a little succulents this year, which I was, trying to be creative and really getting the students connected to the counseling center. Hopefully they're all still living. But yeah, and we have, I think one of my favorite partnerships at Brandeis is we have the Intercultural Center, the ICC. And so folks may be familiar, and it's especially designed for students of color on campus. And we have a great new director, Peter Rojas, who just came to us from Merrimack. And he's here for the partnerships. His first week that he started, I said, will you meet with the Brandeis Counseling Leadership? And he's like, I'm there. Mental health is one of my top priorities. And so I hope if you get a chance, where's the ICC? Over there, I'm a little disoriented. Over there, it's a really great space, beautiful artwork, comfy couches, and it's really a community center. And I feel so fortunate, we have a private office space for a therapist who's designated, and we have 5 satellite offices around campus for our counseling, our counselors to be at. So we have a designated, kind of what you were talking about, I completely agree, we have a designated therapist who spends a couple days a week at the ICC. And as we know, sometimes students, especially from historically marginalized backgrounds, may not feel comfortable walking into a more traditional healthcare setting, may have had a bad experience. We know that that's reflected in the research. And so if they feel more comfortable seeing a counselor at the ICC or at the gym or at their graduate school, then we try to make that happen to really reduce those barriers. But I'm also thinking about some areas for growth, and we don't have a specific veteran liaison yet. And so going back to that question, when a student gets on campus, do I belong? Well, if we have a number of affinity groups, and I can talk about more of those later, but is there room, and how can we make sure that students who are veterans or who are in the military can receive that same support too? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies. If I could go on to the next question, please. And I'm going to preface this question with just the only numbers. I gave up on letters. I don't do letters very well. So numbers I can do, though. And since 9/11, approximately 7,000 service members have lost their lives in combat and through other situations. During that period of time, 140,000 have taken their life. Now, this is not just in the veterans population, it's within the general population. Last week, we had a suicide walk that we attracted 500 survivors, raised $70,000 for the Mass Council for Suicide Prevention. But I would like to ask the panel, how can we identify behaviors that might indicate a friend is contemplating suicide? Who do we send that person to? Are we brave enough to ask, are you thinking of taking your life? I thought as a novice that if I asked that question, it would push somebody over the edge. The counselors all tell me now that that is exactly what needs to be done. You need to bring that person back to real life, because it's a life and death situation. And with this panel, I'll throw it off to you folks now. How would you recognize what steps should you take if you do think that somebody is thinking of hurting themselves?
That might sound better. I couldn't tell.
We actually had that situation, so I can speak to a real student situation in the work that we do. And when I talk about the partnership between the student, my organization, and the institution, this is when it becomes really, really critical. When you ask what are some of the signals, it is withdrawal. When part of what we do with our students when they're coached is they're in touch with their coach every week or every other week. So they develop a real close bond with that coach, and that coach can tell before the professor can tell, very often before the parents can tell, what's going on and how that student is doing. And when the student starts to withdraw, we call it going dark. And so we start to monitor, okay, you missed a call. You missed 2 calls, that's a red flag, so that we need to reach out. And some of the things that we see that cause it are anxiety, it's loneliness, it's social media bullying. You think it ends in high school, it does not, it continues on in college. It's afraid of failure, it's feeling like they're imposters, they don't belong. All of those things contribute to a student feeling despair. And we did have a student who had called, and she was actually someone that I was coaching. And we had a rule, and the rule is when you speak to the coach, it's confidential, unless we feel that there is any risk at all in you harming yourself or you are being harmed by someone else, then all bets are off. We escalate. And she was really struggling, not doing well, not feeling like she belonged, and she just said, you know what? It's just too much. I just feel like killing myself. Now, for me, even if it was in jest, that's serious. So I immediately said, okay, so where are you? Because the first thing you want to know is, where are you? Are you with someone? Are you by yourself? Can I get someone to you? And immediately called the client, who immediately and said, here's the situation, find her parents. Get someone, I know where she is, I'm gonna keep her on the phone. Get someone to her now. And we did that. Now, the student was very angry that I had escalated. And I said, you can be angry, but I've never lost one, and you're not gonna be lost on my watch. I have a responsibility, and it's not about keeping your confidentiality, it is about keeping you alive. So we went through the rest of that semester, and her parents did intervene. They got her the help she needed, and at the end of the semester, we have what we call homecoming, where students come back together and we review the first semester academic results. How did you do? What do you need to do differently? How do you reset your GPA goals? And she had not really been very warm, because she was a little angry, and like I told her, I don't be mad, but I'll be glad. And she walked in with yellow roses and said, thank you. At that time, she couldn't feel it, she couldn't receive it, but once she got the help she needed, she realized that it had been a life-saving. And those were the best flowers I have ever received. So that's from the community and the work we do. That's what we look for. That's how we respond.
Oh, okay.
It's like,
Yeah, what she said. Yeah, and that's similar messaging that we share with our students, and yeah, some of them are mad. I'm like, I'd rather you be mad at me and alive the next day to be mad at me. I'll take it. And again, like you shared, when someone's in a depressive episode, part of it is that one's not able to think clearly, not able to make decisions to be able to keep themselves safe. So we make those decisions for them, get them stabilized, and until they're able to do that for themselves. And as you were, I think, alluding to, one of the biggest myths is, I don't want to ask about suicide because I don't want to put the idea in someone's head if it's not there. And we know that research has debunked that it's not, if somebody isn't having the thought about hurting themselves, they're gonna say, oh, no, that's not what I was thinking, it really was just a joke. But we don't know if we don't ask that question. And so I wanted to share just briefly about 2 programs that I brought to Brandeis, and they're national programs. They're used across the country. One is specifically used in colleges, and so the first one is called QPR, and it's a gatekeeper training. Yeah, folks are familiar with it. Question, persuade, refer, and it's really CPR for mental health. And I mention it because, and I can get the name of the specific website, but in Massachusetts, they often offer free QPR trainings for anyone, providers, any community members to take. So I just mention it in case folks might be interested that it can be free. And so we have a handful of staff therapists who are trained as certifiers, and the training is about an hour. And so relatively easy to fit in the schedule, and it's really just how do you know if someone's experiencing withdrawal, if there's a change in behavior, if they start mentioning suicide and death, or wishing that they were dead, or feeling overwhelmed, or just got news, or kind of any of those symptoms, and then how to respond, how to ask that question. For many folks, even when you've been doing it for years, it's a hard question. And if you can't ask the question, find someone who can. And so we started in fall 2023 training Brandeis faculty and staff. And we've trained everyone from folks in student affairs. The librarian said they were interested in a training because they work so closely with student workers. And so that's been a really positive highlight from this previous year. And then this fall, we started training students and student leaders. And so someone had asked me a question about our community advisors, like our RAs, the student leaders who live in the dorms. And we trained 77 student leaders this August during their pre-orientation. And it was at the end of the day, they had a whole training and they were wonderful and asked fantastic questions. And I shared this briefly, but we had 3 student leaders who came up after the training and said, can I become an instructor too? This is so important. This is exactly what students are talking about. I'm witnessing depression, anxiety, other life events, adapting to our current socio-political climate, and also like how much do we love Brandeis students that they're so proactive and want to be leaders. So definitely check out QPR, and then also we're now providing mental health first aid training, which again is much more like first aid. It's a longer training, but I mentioned that too in case folks are interested in being involved with that as well.
I think these are super comprehensive answers, and I won't belabor these points. I think we've gotten across. The one thing I'll add is that we also have started doing a youth program, Resilient Youth, which we see elementary, middle, and high school military-connected youth, so their parent or grandparent or someone is in the military. And one other thing, I mean, most people here, of course, older, but if you have youth in your life, or you work in schools or whatnot, I want to underscore that idea of the bullying and the teasing. I think that's a huge risk factor. So even if the student isn't, maybe bringing that to the fore, if there is this kind of a sniff of that going on, it's worth it to ask, because if you can intervene, that can really make a big difference for young people.
Well, I want to accentuate the fact about the home-based program. I've had several experiences with that great organization, and one of the key factors that they do within the veterans community is, I don't know what percentage of employees you have are veterans, but it's most of them.
It's a lot, yep.
And nothing appeals to a veteran more than talking to another veteran. And talking to somebody that understands, somebody that gets it. So as you form these groups, I would say that, there's, in the used car business, there's an ask for every seat out there. And every partner out there deserves someone to say, are you doing okay? Are you feeling okay? Let's sit down and talk about it. Maybe I can help with your problems. But that's my quick overview on a little bit more of the suicide problem. But I would ask, what are some of the most common mental health challenges that college students experience today?
Okay. Yeah. Well, a lot is the same and a lot is different. And so we're, at Brandeis specifically, in a lot of ways representative of what we're seeing across the country in terms of mental health trends, especially on the heels of the pandemic, which I know I was talking to a mom about. And so we're definitely seeing increased rates of depression and anxiety. Anxiety is the #1 reason why students come to the Brandeis Counseling Center and also counseling centers across the country. And so helping students navigate that, but then also a lot of adjustment, just like first time living away from home, that sense of belonging, maybe the academics are real different than in high school. And then also we're seeing a lot of trauma. And so I saw the PTSD acronym there on your note card because I'm so nosy. I mean, you kind of have to be. I even say that just, I'm like, I know I'm being really nosy, but I need to ask you. So, and then I'm like, oh, and do you want a little cute sticker? But we're seeing students who are coming in with interpersonal trauma, generational trauma, and community trauma. Yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
I think one of the things that's unique about our program is our students are in campuses all across the country, and even when they travel abroad. So getting away from home, a lot of them experience homesickness. And during the pandemic, a lot of the students were dealing with their parents being deported. That was during the last administration. That was huge. And if you want to talk about personal trauma, when your parents are deported and you're left taking care of your siblings and trying to go to college at the same time, that takes stress to a whole new level. So in addition to stress from being away from home for the first time or taking on the responsibilities of being an adult for the first time, our high schools don't prepare them for life beyond, they don't even prepare them for high school as seniors. So they come out being taken care of. And so one of the major shifts that they're struggling with is, I used to be able to go to my professor and they would tell me where to go, what to do, walk me there, do it for me, and now I'm in this academic setting and I'm expected to do these things all on my own, and I don't have any skills or training for that. And they're not even aware that what they're missing is really knowing how to self-manage, how to self-direct, how to self-advocate. And those are some of the pillars that we give them when they go through the onboarding so that they do become self-sufficient. So when we see them struggling across, when they're not locally, like I said, they're in campuses across the country, we do our coaching so we can see them. It's either WhatsApp, Zoom, or FaceTime. We need to see them because the voice can lie. And when we're looking at them, they may be saying, I'm okay. And we can say, that's what you're saying, but your face is saying otherwise, and so is your voice. So what's really going on? And having someone that is walking with them for the entire time they're in college, that is a confidant that they can turn to. So when they are struggling with issues of being adults, when they're still children themselves, we can't tell them the what, but we can direct them to the resources. We can provide the support in terms of guiding, but not doing the work for them. So we see the depression, we see the anxiety, we see the stress, but we also give them the strategies and tools to overcome that, and then recommend that you go directly to your campus. That's your first line of defense. Your campus resources, that's where you go. So that's where that partnership, no matter where they are and whatever school, that's the partnership that we stress. That's first. And then if there's additional support that's needed, many of our clients have social workers on staff that they will also provide additional support. So we don't leave them hanging or languishing, but we do stay in our lane because that's not our area of expertise, but we do partner with the experts.
Well, one of the benefits of living in Massachusetts is we, by law, are the only state in the nation that will put a Veterans Services Officer in the City Hall in each of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. And I'll offer to the panel here, especially those from Brandeis, have you ever met with the Waltham Veterans Services Officer?
Not yet.
Well, I think that would be,
I think that's on my to-do list.
that would be the first person, because that person is the gatekeeper. That person holds the key to unlocking all sorts of benefits for the veterans community. and would be happy to come here on a regular basis just to be the veteran's friend. Because they're a little bit weird. And most of them haven't gone to school in 5 or 10 years. Working with Veterans Upward Bound, as Charlie and I have, we tried to prepare the veteran for coming into that school situation, which was, holy cow, they're 8 years out of school, 10 years, 15, 20 years out of school. What do they have in common? What are they going to expect when they get there? And unfortunately, PTSD oftentimes will take over and they can't get to school. But they need to have somebody monitoring them, and some are better than others. But as we all know, the ones that need help, they really do need some help. But what do you think we could do to destigmatize that thing? I mean, don't tell the veterans, because they would rather chop off their arm than say they needed help. But what else could we do to encourage folks to come out and say, gee, I don't feel too good today?
I can start. Well, reiterating, I think, Lorita, you had mentioned this from the very beginning. And so you mentioned Upward Bound, and Brandeis has an Upward Bound program, Posse, partnerships with the Myra Craft program, many of whom are first generation, first in their family to come to college and also come from low income, historically marginalized communities. And so we have Brandeis counseling staff liaisons who work together with the SSSP directors and leaders from the very beginning to normalize, hey, we're part of your support team on campus. And we're fortunate because we have a pretty large counseling staff to have some pretty good representation. So we have therapists who self-identify as from BIPOC communities and being first generation in their family to attend college. And so we have who want to also be working with students, identifying their own position and saying, we've been there and now we're a therapist. So if you need someone to talk to, here's me, here's my name, and so that they know right away it's normal to ask for some counseling support. Please don't wait until you're feeling isolated or a crisis just to make that initial connection.
So yeah, I think this is really important as well in the military communities, and it's the knowing someone. I think it's exactly what we've all identified so far. It's having someone you trust, someone who's been there, someone who knows what you're talking about, knows your language, for lack of a better term, like a lot of military-specific kind of lingo, and someone knows that without having to explain oneself. I think that goes a long way. It also goes a long way to reduce the overall stigma. Of course I'm struggling. This thing that we did was really, really hard. Why should we kind of not be? Just kind of flipping the narrative on what it means to struggle. And that is a sign of strength to ask for help. It's really not a weakness. It's how can we, again, kind of change that conversation. The other thing I'll add is just a really low barrier to entry. So a lot of, I'll use, veteran communities at this point as an example, because it's the one I'm most familiar with rather than students per se. But maybe I'm not gonna talk to someone. What are you talking about? Talk to a therapist. That's for someone else. That's not for me. No way. I'm whatever it is. Maybe I have my military persona on. Maybe I'm it's just not. It's a weakness again. I can't do that. But what we offer again are these sort of non-clinical programs over at home base. There's the intensive clinical program, which is 2-week, mostly PTSD therapy, treatment resource. And then our programs on the outpatient side are, we call them resilience, because who doesn't want that? And it's a huge component of the military too. Military fitness, readiness, resilience kind of goes hand in hand. So our programs are 6 weeks. They're online. Come as you are. Learn about some skills to be more resilient. So if we can change the kind of packaging of some of this, and again, give it a broader reach, that can really get to people where they are. Some of the terminology, some of the availability, and some of the, again, hey, I've done this, you should try this, let's get the word out.
One of the things that we have found that's been effective is the upperclassmen speaking to the first and second year students who have used resources. So it's one thing for us as adults to say you need support. Why don't you, give it some consideration? It's another when a graduate or a upperclassman comes in, we have them come in at the end of the first academic semester, and they come in and give, the seniors and juniors give advice to the freshmen and sophomores. And they have such respect for the upperclassmen in a different way than the adults. And when they say, look, I needed to get help, I was depressed, I had anxiety, I did it, then suddenly it's like, okay, then maybe it's okay if you did it, okay. And then they will explain, this is what I was going through. And very often it's the same thing that the first year students are going through. And so they are able to guide them and just share with them that it was important for them to get help, it's important for them to get help, and also, and if you need to talk to somebody, they will say, you can call me. So it's really kind of like a buddy system from the first year to the third and fourth year that we have found has been very helpful when we find students are resistant and we know they need help. Sometimes it's another student who's been there and can say, look at the difference it made in my life, that can get through when nobody else can.
We're running close to 11:05, I think, in the schedule. We have Master Sergeant Charlie DuQuette is going to be asking some questions, I guess. Take it away, Charlie. It's the first time.
Excuse me, I'm a little shy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Lost 10 pounds, okay. And I taught Japanese, I taught English in Japan, and maybe you wouldn't know about it, but like East is West, that far apart, culture drives the language and the emotional language. And I think that's an important thing. And the questions that you ask, it's not the question, you feel like harming yourself? Yeah, the way you ask me that, you know. So the point is, we have to communicate. But it's not just communicating. Culture is huge on what you would say. And my Japanese students, for example, they wanted to say their English perfect from the first utterance, okay? And I said, when you were younger, in Japanese, did you say to your mother, "Mother, I'm rather thirsty at this time, could I have a glass of water?" Well, we would in English say, "Wawa," okay? In Japanese, they would say, "Mizu chodai." Okay, so what I'm trying to see, is anybody seen or been through that culture shock? Does anybody know what a culture shock is? When you go into a culture, like they're all, the front row is, so not to put you on the spot, I want you to be relaxed, do it now, okay? Okay, tell us about like when, even the culture shock of going from Arizona to Massachusetts, you know, go ahead.
Well, coming to Massachusetts.
Here, hold it near your mouth, talk to me, relax. Sorry, go ahead.
Coming to Massachusetts from Arizona was sort of a culture shock for me. I'd never been able to talk about certain things the way I would here as I would there, and it was life-changing. And I learned a lot about myself. I had to change how I spoke too and how I view certain things. I noticed here in Massachusetts you're a lot more opinionated about certain things.
We are That's good, that's good. Are you saying people from Boston have an attitude, like a wicked attitude? But that's a good point, because I told people, I just talked to somebody earlier, I was stationed even in Japan, in the South. I mean, everywhere I went, I was in the Southern. Did you know that people in New England speak 3 times faster than anybody else in the country, this whole area? So I went down south to Georgia. I pulled into a gas station. Hey, could you check my water and my oil? And do you have a vending machine here? And I gotta go in, right? I'm fixing to tell you something. Could you go out and come back again? Because I don't understand anything you just done said. You know, and I was like, whoa. So that's different. In cultures with like Japanese has 15 different levels of politeness, and our ancestors are very important, and all this stuff. Or you might be in a religious group that has respect for their elders. Isn't that weird? Okay, so what was your experience? Okay, you're gonna pass? Yeah.
You're just so selling me out.
Okay, so that's good communication, I like that. So what's your name?
David,
Okay, David, and where are your ancestors from originally?
you mean my ancestor?
Yeah, ancestry, I should say, yeah.
I think it's China.
Okay, ni hao ma. Okay, so, trying to relax the client. Okay, so, do you remember, where did you live in the United States and come to Brandeis, or did you come from outside the United States?
Outside.
Okay, so what was the first shock when you got off the plane at Logan? You know, that kind of thing. I know I have a lot of those.
Technically not from Logan because I spent first 3 years in New York as a high school student. So
That's a shock there too. So.
yeah, it's true. Technically, it's a second round shock when it's from New England to from New York to Massachusetts because you can see. How I'm gonna say is. Anybody watches My Little Pony before? Because there's an episode talking about Applejacks went from farms to Manhattan. That's the thing, exactly the thing happens.
That's what it's like, huh?
Yeah, because you can see Massachusetts is more like a center of the elites, I suppose, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can tell their behavior is still completely different from NYC because NYC is kind of similar to my hometown. I'm from Shanghai. So that's why NYC is not so not relatively indifferent. I mean, so the thing is, it takes a while to get used to like NYC, and it takes a while to get used to Boston, then get used to NYC somehow.
That's good, see? And you've emboldened this young man, but he's giving me killer laser looks. So does anybody else, well, I'll talk to this young lady. Oh, this gentleman in the back, he was nodding his head, giving me nonverbal communication that, amen, brother. Okay, so tell me a couple of your culture shock.
I came here in 1970 from Little, Georgia.
Okay.
2 years from segregated schools. 1970, restaurants I worked, black people were still going to the back door to order food to go. And I came to Brandeis and had to learn English all over again.
Yeah. Speaking about English, I think this young man knows a few. Did you have a few culture shocks in the period that you attended?
Well, this young man, he's younger than me, just brought me back to an incident that I recall in a restaurant in the South. And I'm from Mount Vernon, New York, and from Westchester County at that. And so I was accustomed to being able to do anything I wanted to do at any time, anywhere. Really. Some neighborhoods you didn't go to unless you knew people in the neighborhood, but you basically could go and eat where we wanted to eat, drink where we wanted to drink. Traveling in the South, my father was from Florida, and from time to time, when we traveled from New York to Florida, we had to make a plan. Where were you going to stop? Who was going to meet you? And how comfortable you were going to be when you got there. And I remember having to eat food in the kitchen of a restaurant where I watched the white service people deliver food to the dining room where there was linen tablecloths and people were eating. And we were eating at a counter in the kitchen. And I was looking through the push doors into the dining room where I was in Mount Vernon, New York, or White Plains, New York, or Bronxville, New York. I would be sitting at that table.
Wow. She pointed at you, sir. I'm sorry, I have to go over there. By the way, nice haircut. You can copy the Colonel there.
These are my cousins from the Bahamas.
Oh.
Well, thank you. Leroy has been an inspiration to us all as family members. But I've had my culture shock attending university in Baton Rouge, Louisiana in the 1970s, in fact in 1975. The South was changing at that time, so they accepted us it was a great time to be in the South. So we are here in the North. This is my second trip here in Boston, and we feel that this is a great moment to hear the concern and the efforts set up to look after the next generation of students coming into the university setting. But I'm particularly conscious of Leroy's effort and lifetime's work, and we are happy to be here. And in the Bahamas, we shock people all the time by letting you feel welcome to our country. So my wife is here, she shocks me every day.
Is she an island girl?
Oh, yeah.
Island girl, okay, don't sing that song.
That's what.
But, yeah, but the thing is, think about it, living on an island is whole different. I was on Hawaii, Oahu, Aloha Bra. And it's the third smallest island of the chain, but it has 75% of the people go to Oahu. And my culture shock was, somebody came up, hey bro, I got on the bus and we drove. No, I got with my buddies and we got in the car and we drove. We drove and we drove. It must have took us 40 minutes to get to the Walmart. Do you see what the difference is? When you live on an island, I think I'll go to Maine. No, you won't. You know what I mean? So we take for granted open spaces. If you're on an island, everybody knows you. That's a good thing and a bad thing. So this is what I'm saying. Culture drives the language. And the other thing, for exchange students, I can't even fathom taking psychology in a Japanese class. Because half the course is in German, But you know what I'm saying? Because every language has could you tell me where the number 9 bus stop is? That's survival language, right? But when you get into college, every course has its own language and dialect. And the hardest thing they had for the Japanese students, they had to come through, they were accepted. Their English is better than me. They knew grammar, they could write and everything. They had to be schooled on, guess what? How to debate and make an argument in public, say no. So the culture, they had to take 3 months before they started their school and basically get used to somebody saying, I respect your opinion and I'm taking the other side of this, and this is part of my exercise to grow with that knowledge. And I would like to give you, because you're really in touch with that, do you see different cultures impacting communications? Never mind, I need help. How should I say it? Help? Or have you experienced any of that?
So let me just clarify the question.
Okay.
Asking if there are, in the students that we're dealing with or working with, are we seeing that they're struggling with different cultures?
Right. In other words, they're coming and they have culture shock, besides being alone, being away from home, but it could be the language and the culture together, that they don't do that anyways in their culture. Give me an example.
Yeah. Well, how about roommating in college?
Good answer.
You're not used to, you're now rooming with someone you don't know, who doesn't have, I see you're really not in your head.
Yeah, earlier I get a roommate from Texas, Cali, Russia, and Georgia, Israel. Come on. How mixed up that is.
Dynamics.
And not only trying to understand the different dialects, but different lifestyles, sharing different foods, sharing living spaces, sharing the bathrooms. It's huge, and not being able to, not having the skill to be able to say what works for you and what doesn't, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Even dating. So there are certain campuses that allow the men in the rooms where young women are not accustomed to having men in the rooms. So these different challenges need to be navigated and are not always spoken before you're rooming. And so the students end up trying to navigate that, and that's where, fortunately, we have good RAs who will help them to deal with that. So when you've got 4 or 5 girls or boys in a room, And each one has different habits, shall we say. Some are clean, some are not. How do you navigate that? So learning how to really share in spaces that you are not accustomed to sharing, and how to speak up for yourself, and how to advocate for yourself in terms of what's acceptable, what's not, what you're willing to have, what you're not. We had a student that, this was a very unusual situation, but we had a student who had a roommate who, how do I say this? Was a devil worshiper and was sleeping with knives under the bed and was having these people visit the room. Now this is pretty extreme, but I thought it was pretty extreme. But then when you find out at that particular school, there were other things that were going on and the administration is not involved or aware. So helping this young woman navigate her safety, and for the student who self-identified that way, they saw absolutely nothing wrong. I'm not harming you. This is shared space. I get to do what I want. Not so much. And so helping students who find themselves in situations that are uncomfortable, that was an extreme. Another was a young lady waking up and finding that her roommate's boyfriend was in the room, but that was okay, not for her. How do you navigate that? And so these are, you can call them cultural differences, but they are really, where are the boundaries? And helping students navigate boundaries where they feel safe, and that it's okay to say what you're doing is not okay, because you're not necessarily going to get a new roommate. So how are you going to navigate the situation? So those were two really extreme situations where we actually interceded, worked with the administration to see what could be done to respect the student who had those differences, but also make sure that the student who was concerned felt safe. So when you say cultural, it's bigger than language. It's lifestyle, it's living, it's food, you know. Some didn't like the smell of different foods.
Right, could you pass that down to the Brasso?
Oh, well, I wanted to switch the topic.
Okay, but I had a tiny lighthearted.
Yeah.
My freshman roommate was from New Mexico, which is not Arizona, but similarly sunny, and it was in Massachusetts as well. And in February, she said, "Where's the sun? I haven't seen it in so long." I was like, "What do you mean? It's February." There's the sun. She was like, "Do you know that in other places there's sun in February?" On Earth? Culture shock. So.
I like that one.
Yeah, took her down a dark path.
Oh, no.
But a real path. This is very enlightening, this conversation. It's enlightening, but sometimes it's difficult to hear. Now I'm talking about the panel itself. I think having been in this field on the provider end, what's really important, some of the takeaways, is that there are solutions. You know, you don't have to walk around just because you have a difficult time or you're feeling depressed or someone really angered you. You don't have to walk around with it. There are people, there are safe places that you can go to who can talk to you, okay, to help you maybe understand why you're feeling this way, to get some help on, you know, how do I cope with this, or is there someone else, you know, that can help me to do this, to help me navigate this. I grew up in Boston. I went to school, Boston Public Schools. I did fairly well, But coming here was a real challenge, as it is for, a number of students. I never talked to anybody about that. I just kind of plowed through. But you don't have to do that. It's okay to talk to someone about that. Because one of the things that I do, when I do therapy, individual therapy, my first question is, are you having any fun? Okay? And if you're not having fun, then what is getting in the way of that? Everyone should have fun, or everyone should be doing something that they enjoy, okay? And if you're not, there's something happening, all right? So, but what I wanted to do is to open this up to questions from the students and also from anyone else. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on the conversation we were having about sort of the cultural barriers or differences or what it was like coming to Brandeis. When I came to Brandeis, I'm also a Bostonian native. I grew up in the Dorchester inner city neighborhood, and I remember coming to Brandeis in my first semester. I must have gone home for Thanksgiving, but I don't remember it. But I remember going back home for intercession. And particularly as it relates to first generation students or students from, historically marginalized communities, I saw my community differently. And it separated me a little bit from some of my peers and family members. And I didn't know how to talk about that or how to think about that. I mean, I had driven up and down Blue Hill Avenue for all of my life, but after being in a suburban community and it's plush and it's beautiful and it's all of these things and it's so well resourced, my lens changed. And that kind of created some separation or some difficulty in terms of how you navigate that re-entry almost in those two communities.
Okay. Other questions? I'd like to hear from a student. Or a parent, a student or a parent? Okay.
Having gone to a different university that I won't mention the name of, and having cited that university, let me rephrase this, I wouldn't say I chose Brandeis for my son, but I heavily encouraged attendance, choosing this university. And the reason I chose Brandeis, the reason I heavily encouraged Brandeis was because where I went to school, somewhere else, I grew up in the New York City area in a very multicultural environment. My father, white, Jewish, grew up in Harlem. I was not taught to see differences in cultures, in skin color, in religion, we're all, forgive me, God's children, and that's it. And when I went to college, that's where I learned what racism, what anti-Semitism was. And I learned it in many cases, I hate to say this, but from professors. And I guess my question for you, because we've talked about resources being provided to students, student veterans, experiences for, or trainings for various university personnel. Is there anything being done, or should there be anything done, any trainings to enlighten professors, to get professors on board with all of this? Because at the end of the day, when you are, and I say this as a teacher myself, when you talk about education, the bulk of education, well, I shouldn't say bulk of it, a big piece of education comes from what is happening in the classroom. And the professor is at the lead for that. So is there anything available to professors? Are there trainings being provided? Should they be provided? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay.
More is caught than taught.
Exactly.
I can take that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and more is needed. So there's a lot to talk about right now on campus, on Brandeis specifically, about what's going on in the world with the upcoming election, with violence globally. And so the kind of two folks that I'm thinking of, so Dr. Chip McNeil runs the DEI department. He's phenomenal, and one of the reasons he's phenomenal is because he's here for the relationships. And so his department is spearheading a couple different things. We're partnering with an organization called Resetting the Table, which folks may be familiar with. They especially work on supporting organizations and having healthy dialogue related to specifically conflict in the Middle East. And that is a life skill that is, well, that's important. I think we all agree about that. And a lot, and what I'm hearing from Brandeis students, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that students are like, we need to talk about what's going on, and we need the adults, the middle-aged and older adults on campus to be able to help model that and facilitate and to really what that respectful dialogue looks like. And so bringing in some outside trainers from that organization, also drawing from restorative justice practices, and there's going to be an upcoming series of listening sessions. Some are specifically for faculty and staff. I'm actually involved in that one specifically, and then there's going to be a series for community members, some just for students, some combination, and again, really drawing from restorative justice practices. And more needs to be done too. One person who might be useful to be in touch with is Marty Samuels, who's the director of CTL, which is the Center for Teacher and Learning. I'm like, did I get the acronym right? And Marty, I know that he's working on, he's often a liaison between folks on campus and faculty. So he and I connect about how can we help faculty talk about mental health in the classroom. And I'm like, Quentin, do you want to add, you may even know more about this, but he's a good link to helping faculty create meaningful discussions within the classroom and using the academic environment. So he's someone too who's taking action who might be a good point person.
And do you work, okay, anybody else have any thoughts? Or amen? I'm back to him, okay. Keep smiling. You'll feel better, I do.
As a physician, my company works, our mission is to provide healthcare to low-income individuals. We have to go through annual implicit bias training, and I have to do it also working in jail, so it's mandatory that we undergo this. So maybe that's something that needs, in an institution that's this diverse, they need to start thinking about. It is mandatory.
Yeah, and perhaps on an annual basis.
On an annual basis, I work in the clinics and in the jail. So I have to do it in the jail, and I have to do it for the clinics.
Right, and I taught in a maximum security prison in Oahu and a couple others in Massachusetts. And you want to talk diversity, and I can't get along with my roommate, and that's on roids right there. But on this side, the younger people over here, don't be afraid of me. I'm your friend. I'm going to help you. You're going to leave here a healthier and happier person. So did you? Are you a new student in Brandeis?
I'm a junior.
Junior, that's you're just getting your win there. So what kind of things that if you were in charge, or when you got here first, what kind of like slapped you upside the face as far as, wow, that's different, you know? Go ahead.
Sorry, it might take a while to think about that.
No, it's all right, just relax. I forced almost this whole road that way, so if you laugh, you'll feel better.
So I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey.
Joy, what I
So the environment that I was all around was hyper academia, that you just had to be the best at everything, you had to do everything. And if you even fell apart for like 1 second, you're done. Like you're not getting into an Ivy League. And when I got into Brandeis, of course, people were like, what's Brandeis?
Yeah.
You know, like that's not Harvard, that's not Princeton.
I like that.
And then, like, when I got here, you know, I had a very slow start. I think I took like 2 classes in, you know, your HWL and required things. And I was ashamed. I was like, people are gonna make fun of me because I'm taking it slow. If this was back in my hometown, I'd get like eviscerated for this. And people were just so kind and understanding that I had to take it a little slower and had that adjustment. It wasn't that I was pitted against my peers at all. They wanted to see the best in me. and that really like rubbed off on me, just supporting other people as well. So the culture shock of you don't have to hate your peers was crazy for me.
Wow.
That's good.
Fish are your friends, they're not food, okay, yes. So no, that's a good point. No, I will just
We've got
do,
a senior.
huh?
We've got a senior.
Where?
A friend wants to hear from him.
Where's the senior? Oh, you're the senior? Well, you've done a lot of good work.
Good.
Yeah, and I used to be really shy, that's a lie, but I was a kid. Either my son, we were walking in a Chinese restaurant, and he goes, "Everybody's staring at us." I said, "Yeah, look at all the cooks in the back, they're looking at you right now." "Oh, no."
Yeah, that's
And I said that. "Oh, no, they're not. They don't know if you're alive or dead. They don't care," okay? So a lot of times we get a little stressed out. And you're actually dealing with a stressful moment right now, right? Now, I know, let me just, one sentence on how you're working as an intern with Mr. Leroy Ashwood. Just a little, can you do that? Okay. All right. I don't want to pressure you. Do it now. Okay, here you go.
Would you like me to still talk about culture shock?
Hey, that's even better.
Sure.
Go.
My name is Harry. I have been working at Brave for Veterans this past summer as a legal research intern, researching the issue of home equity theft here in Massachusetts and across the country. I've written 2 papers on it. Both of them have been submitted to the Massachusetts State Legislature for their consideration. Very proud of that. One.
You said I am too.
Yeah, he was on a roll. Keep going. That was great.
And I guess as far as, well, so over the summer I was also taking a class for the legal studies minor. You need to do an internship seminar, and part of that class was to do interviews with people in Brave or outside of my internship. And so one of the interviewees was Mr. Gregg Brasso, and I spoke with him about veterans issues to learn more about it, because my topic was more about home equity theft, which is something that affects everyone and of course affects veterans, but I wanted to know specifically about veterans issues. And one thing that I've learned is that with veterans, there's not as much support as far as coming out of service, as far as what do you do with your life. You know, you come back to civilian life and now what? And so one thing I've taken away from that is that giving purpose to life is a very important thing as far as when it comes to veterans and when it comes to people in general, that people really need purpose in life in order to feel fulfillment and otherwise.
That's good. Very good. See, you're a ringer. You're a ringer. Ringing.
One last.
This is it. And since he mentioned your name, may I approach? You have to respond to that on a legal court. So why don't you wrap up and kind of what your thoughts and takeaways of that especially?
Well, certainly, we've covered a lot of steps, and the veterans world is just a subset of the real world. There's the same problems, there's the same whatever's the fears, and the big brave veterans coming out of the service are as nervous and worried about the future and fitting in as any of you folks were as you approached your new path here at Brandeis. But I want to congratulate Brandeis for addressing this, and hopefully there can be some further conversations about what else we can do to promote the understanding of the world right now, because, well, it kind of sucks. And if it can start here, I was a product of the 60s, and we helped change the world. We brought the boys home from Vietnam. We made them end the war. And all you folks, you're much smarter than we were. And look at the advantage you have of being at such an institution that, wow, what a great life you might have. But you have to grasp it, and you have to take advantage of it. And I think you can't be worried about some voices in the back of your mind telling you, no, I can't. no, I can't, you got a whole bunch of people right here and over there, and Mr. Ashwood on top of it, saying that you can. So that would be my turning out from today, and I know that my group at Veterans Voice would be happy to support whatever efforts Brandeis might have, and hopefully we can continue to work together and bring some more understanding, not only to the veterans community, but to all around. So that would be my closing statement on today. And Marsh, thank you so much for allowing me to have this opportunity and to salute my dear ambassador.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. This has been a wonderful panel with one more thing. Well, two more things. So, okay. Thank you for all our panelists. This has been very enlightening. And there's a couple of additional things I would like to say. One is that we have a guest of Leroy, retired Colonel David Grant, who he retired from the military, and he was the director of Soldiers in Life. And so he was responsible for kind of directing the military, the soldiers, toward resources. So there are, if anyone knows anyone who is in the military and they think they might need some help, maybe they can get a suggestion as to whom they could refer, that person to. Secondly, I have a challenge for the students, and I will never know. This will kind of be a so-called honor challenge where you can decide, what you want to do. So I would challenge you, if there's something that's been on your mind that you've been thinking about, or you're just kind of perseverating about this and it just bothers you, try talking to somebody. Try talking to a support person. Doesn't have to be, anyone on the panel. It could be we call them residence counselors, okay? Could be a residence counselor, could be your advisor, someone who you feel safe talking to. Just give it a shot. It can be one time and see if it makes a difference. See if it's helpful to you, okay? Because help, psychological help, which we don't like to hear, emotional help, it can be one session, it can be 3 sessions, or it can be 6 months, okay? But that's my challenge to you. You don't have to share that with anyone, but just try it. And finally, I would like to have remarks from Leroy.
By the way, she was in the younger class.
She was I was going to say, I'm the oldest person in the room, so I know everybody who's in the younger class. This has been thrilling. I'm glad this whole row are new brave veterans interns, so I'm pleased that they were able to make it today. My sincere thanks to the panel. My good friend, I call him the town crier because his radio station puts out information that nobody else in the area, perhaps even in the world, given the fact that it's broadcast in that fashion. My right-hand man here, Charlie DuQuette. My family from the Bahamas, whom I haven't seen in 30 years. Between the two of them, first Elizabeth and then Jeffries, their respective families have been prime ministers of the Bahamas for the last 50 years. Wow. So if anybody wants a free raffle, will be given away in the back of the room to Paradise Island, see that. And a flight discount. Well, thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for coming to this particular panel. This is an important conversation. When I came to Brandeis from Mount Vernon, again, I came from Westchester County, New York, which was very mixed at the time. And the campus rabbi happened to have been the main rabbi in my hometown. So when I came to Brandeis, not only did I have classmates who were here, but the rabbi was somebody who would resolve problems during the 60s when civil rights was a big issue all over the country. So I listened. This is a different day. There are different challenges. But conversation and interaction helps us all. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.